This is a response to Willy Will 13 in his video about 10 reasons he observed that atheists are atheists. And his first is that religions do bad things, yet that shouldn't be a reason to knock God. Well, I think that if the followers of God aren't so holy, perhaps they aren't being too, well, divinely inspired. I think that is a fairly relevant criticism. If people are supposedly following this divinely moral being, why aren't they acting very moral? It's a fair question to ask. I think that you've done little to actually address it. However, it's certainly not the tack I would take against the whole belief. It's simply something I think we all observe to be true. The next is that atheists believe in evolution. However, lots of Christians believe in evolution too. The Pope believes in evolution. So, evolution an atheist does not make. However, evolution does prove that, if you believe in it, the Bible is not literally true, and that a literal belief in the Bible is logical. Because the Bible claims that God made everything, and, well, having any extremely reasonable alternative to that really hurts the brand, and I think the question of why you would believe in a God if he's not necessary is a fair one that ought to be asked. Again, it's not particularly my tact. The next one is that, let me see here, charges of incest against Adam and Eve. However, I don't think that's really one that most people care about. The story makes no sense. That's more important than whether or not they had incest. The idea that God made man by magically touching some dust, and then he made woman by cutting a rib out of the dust man he made, and that there were talking snakes, and that God made a sky to hold up water in the heavens. All these things don't make any sense. The next one he talks about is, if there are extraterrestrial life in this universe, what does this mean? I don't think that most people really consider that a valid argument, or really particularly even care. He says, though, that if there were aliens and they believed in a God, that would prove God is real, though that is completely nonsensical. If humans can be wrong about the origins of the universe and the nature of the universe, any other living creature could also be wronged about the nature of the universe and so forth. The next one he talks about is man existed before any of the religions you named. And this is actually a very realistic argument, which he never truly addresses. Long before the Bible was written, there were people. Long before the Bible was written and God was considered to be real by these groups of people, there were other gods. And long before them, there were no gods. That is a wonderful argument against believing in the God of the Bible. Why? Because it would certainly seem that he was simply made up. The person, Willy Will, never makes any argument that I heard as to why it's logical to conclude that he was just made up. So, I guess I'll leave it there since he doesn't actually ever suggest anything else. And I'll move to his next one, which is, God is nothing but an imaginary friend. And, of course, this really isn't the argument I've ever used. I've certainly said that people's particular God is an imaginary friend, but the idea of a God itself is a totally separate argument from just the Christian God. The belief that the Christian God exists is laughable because people believe that they can pray to this Christian God. And yet, other people who have other gods supposedly believe they can pray to their gods too. And all of these people, who are all doing all this praying to all these different gods, only one of which could be real, if any, all of them believe that they're being answered. The only logical conclusion to come to, then, is that none of them are being answered, because probably prayer would just be an illusion. It would simply be a self-fulfilling prophecy, just like fortune tellers use various techniques to convince people that regardless of whatever answer they give, the answer they've been given is true and correct and right. Prayer works on a similar method. You make a prayer, and if it comes true, you say, God did it. And if it doesn't come true, well, you just forget about it. Or you say, well, I guess God didn't want to grant me it. No matter what you do, your prayer either is answered or isn't answered. And if it's not answered, you don't count that against God. It's not the way that prayer works. Basically, it does not work. Studies have shown that people being prayed for, or pretending to have been prayed for, I mean, you have people praying for somebody, there's no increase in healing. In fact, there's some suggestion that people hearing that they're being prayed to may make them more likely to die. As well, you've never seen a person who's been amputated grow a leg back because they were prayed for. If somebody can make an amputee be prayed a limb back, I will convert whatever religion they're from instantly. But until then, I think that the argument that Yahweh doesn't answer your prayers and you're simply stupid for believing he is a reasonable argument. And let's see, that's actually his last argument in this video. Supposedly there's a second video somewhere. In the meantime, I still am left with the same position I had before, which is you believe all these things, despite the fact that they fly in the face of all the naturally known world. Things cannot be made out of nothing, dust cannot come to life, you cannot flood the earth because there's simply not enough water on the earth, you can't hold the sun in the sky, etc. Snakes can't talk, etc. All these things in the natural world can't be observed. Then why on earth do you believe that just because a book of desert scribblings claims it so, that makes it so?